you provide an overview of the novel, Clarissa, or History of a Young Lady?
See, it's exactly. Where is the Clarissa
Sorry, Hayat?
novel? I'm talking about my.
Okay, someone else?
Yes, Miss.
Yes,
Clarissa was a wealthy lady who loved someone, maybe under uh, his rank of wealthy, and her family don't uh, agree with her.
Okay.
So yeah, uh, she she kept his her love and flee with him.
Okay. Actually, Clarissa never chose to escape with him. What happened in the novel? First thing you should retain about the novel is that it was written by one of the fathers of the of rationalism in the Age of Reason. One of the fathers of the novel in the Age of Reason. If you remember when we were talking about the rise of the novel in the Age of Reason, we mentioned four main authors. We said Daniel Defoe, Samuel Richardson, Smollett, and Stern. Okay, so Tobias Smollett and Stern. So these four people are the fathers. They are the founders of the English novel in Great Britain. So Samuel Richardson, or we have taken the novel Clarissa or History of a Young Lady by Samuel Richardson as an example of another of another rational novel, a novel from the 18th century rationalism. So as we will be proceeding here, or as we will be discussing this novel, you should be thinking about these principles. That is the principles of the 18th century novel and what it focused on and how they are reflected in this novel. Okay, so the first thing we know about the novel is that it concerned itself with the middle class, with the individual of the middle class. We also know that a new social class was born in the Age of Reason, which is the high middle class or the bourgeois class. Now, this high middle class or bourgeois class are people that are wealthy, but they have no titles. If you remember that, okay? We often said that they are wealthy people, they have a lot of money, but they are not from the aristocracy and they have no titles. That is, they are not from the nobility, sorry. They are not nobles, they cannot be considered as gentlemen, knights, or else, okay? They do not have titles. But it was known in this period that if somebody's fortune or somebody's wealth would reach a certain level, they can buy a title. Okay, and this was the concern of Clarissa's family. They were a wealthy family, but they wanted titles, and this is why they wanted to keep their wealth in order and to add another wealth to their wealth in order to be able to buy these titles. Okay. Clarissa was a 17-year-old young woman who was nice, who was well educated, and so on, and who inherited her grandfather's wealth. When her grandfather died, she inherited all the wealth. In this period, there was this man, Edward Lovelace, who was trying to seduce her. He was trying to seduce her sister, her older sister, because he was thinking that her older sister was the one who was going to inherit her grandfather's wealth. So he was visiting them very often and he was trying to seduce the older sister, whose values and morals weren't truly high and who more or less was happy or glad to be approached by such man. As when Edward heard or learned about the news, that is when he learned that it was Clarissa who inherited the entire wealth instead of his sister, he started to seduce Clarissa instead. At the same time, Clarissa started having a lot of suitors, and her father as well as her brother have chosen a husband for her. That is one of the people who were asking for her hand was also from the middle class, and he was also very wealthy. So they thought that if Clarissa would marry this man, and if the wealth of the two families would be combined, both of them will have enough money to buy titles. That is, if Clarissa would marry Mr. Solmes, she would have, her family, that is her father and brother as well as uncles, and her husband, by combining the two wealths, by the wealth of the two families, will finally be able to buy titles and will finally be considered as someone from the upper class. So it was very important for her father and her brother that she marries Mr. Solmes. And you see here the aspect of rationality in marriage. If you remember when we were talking about rational literature versus romantic literature, we said rational literature favored rationalism. It favored logic and everything that is rational, and ignored and rejected everything that is emotional. As opposed to romantic literature, which favored emotion and sensibility over rationalism. So as we will be speaking about Clarissa, you are going to see all the principles of rationalism. So the first one we see here is the fact that the novel refers to someone from the middle class. That is the individual. The protagonist is an individual of the middle class, and the entire family is the middle class. I hope that you are taking note here, because these are important. In an exam, you're going to have two topics. The first topic is a topic in which you will be having a direct question. In the second topic, you will have an excerpt with 5 questions about the literary analysis. Okay? So, for example, if you get a question like, let's say, for example, the Age of Reason or the 18th century literature reflected the middle class interests. Okay, if we tell you the 18th century English novel reflected the middle class interests and lifestyle, comment. Okay, comment with the examples. In this case, you will have to speak about the two novels that you have discussed from the 18th century. That is Clarissa and Robinson Crusoe, and how each of them reflects the middle class, how each of them reflects the lifestyle of the middle class. That is the conversation, the things that I am speaking about now. Okay, this is why I always start by talking about how the the novel is related to the literary movement within which it appeared, before I start talking about the excerpt. Okay, so this part of the conversation is also very important, so please do take note, because you may have a question like this. You may have a question about or the question could be simply saying, how does the novel Clarissa, or History of a Young Lady, relate to the 18th century novel? Okay, how would you answer that? You would answer that from the principles of the 18th century, which I am speaking about now. Okay, if you have questions, please activate your microphone and ask them. All right, I cannot see your faces, so I don't see if you have any questions or whether you're having any problems. So I was saying that this novel, Clarissa, or History of a Young Lady, relates to the 18th century novel, first in the fact that it reflects the 18th century middle class society. Okay, to be very precise, it reflects the middle class, which is one of the basic principles of the novel of the 18th century. It also reflects the lifestyle, the emotions, the sensibility of the middle class individual, as well going to see later in the letters of Clarissa. This is why actually this novel is written in the form of letters. Remember what we call or what kind of the type of the novel which is
Yeah,
written
epistle,
in, yes, how do we call a novel which is written in form of letters?
epistle.
Epistolary.
Yes,
Yeah,
very good. Okay, it's the epistolary novel. I see that the students who have answered the question are not my students. How about my students? You don't know how we call a novel which is composed of letters? Hello. And suddenly my students became deaf. All right.
yeah, yes, mate.
Yes,
Yeah,
Ahmed?
yeah, epistle. Yeah, one
Sorry,
of
thank
yes.
you. Thank you for being here, Ahmed. You're the only one who reminds me that I said things in class, or rather,
Thank
who confirms that I said things in class. All
thank
right,
you.
so where was I? I'm saying that the novel it's an episodary novel. It's written in form of letters, and that is done on purpose in order to show the emotional and psychological side of the speaker or of the protagonist. Because through letters, we can see what the speaker actually thinks. We can see what the inner thoughts and inner feelings of the protagonist, the person who is writing the letter. So there are secrets in the letter, there are feelings, there are affects in the letter, which are not usually expressed in daily conversations. Okay, so even the use of the letter or the epistolary novel here is related to the reflection of the self of the an 18th century middle class individual. All right, see that everything is related to the 18th century middle class individual. So this is the first thing. Second thing is the rationalism of the novel. Okay, everything in this novel is meant to remind the 18th century young women in particular that it is important in marriage to be rational rather than being sensitive or emotional. So in the beginning, Clarissa is offered to marry Mr. Solmes, and we can see that if she marries him, she will be very rich. She will have a nice position. She is going to have a title, both her, her husband, her father, and her brother. That an arranged marriage or a marriage based on rationality will only do her good things, will only give her good things. Clarissa rejected this marriage. She didn't want to marry this man. And at the same time, she was constantly approached, or rather, Mr. Lovelace kept going back to her each day or each night, sending her letters and trying to seduce her. Although she was seduced by him a little in the beginning, but she rejected him too. She never truly liked him. She didn't feel okay with him. Uh, Mr. Lovelace tricked her into escaping with him by inviting her, or rather, by making her meet him at night. He made her somehow he made her meet him at night to exchange a letter. And when she was outside at night with him, he had charged his friend to come after them with dogs. When his friend came after them with dogs, he told her that was her brother that was chasing them with dogs, and that she had to escape. In the beginning, she thought she was only escaping her brother with who came with the dogs. She didn't know that Mr. Lovelace would be taking her far from her home. And as she walked away with him, Mr. Lovelace took her to a different city. He took her to London, and she couldn't, since she didn't know the city where she found herself, she had to be fully dependent on him. Since she was fully dependent on Mr. Lovelace, he regained control over her. That is, he was the only person she would go back to. He was the only person she would be she would trust. Okay, and Mr. Lovelace did this on purpose, because if Clarissa's reputation, sorry, is more or less is stained, she knows that she will have to marry Mr. Lovelace against her will. That is by making her going, or by taking her to London, by being the only person she can trust, by being the only person she is going back to in each time she needs any help or anything. He knows that, or he's kind of obliging her to marry him. That is, since she rejected him in the beginning, he thought he could oblige her to marry him by staining her reputation. Sorry, that is, in order to protect her reputation, she would be obliged to be with him. And this is how he thought about it. So see that his way of thinking was more or less rational thinking. He never thought of her as a beautiful woman, even though she was a beautiful woman, and he knew that she was a beautiful woman. He never felt the least sensibility over her. He only thought of her as a source of money, and he tried to trick her into many ways, just to attract her and to get her wealth. Okay, so even while trying to seduce her to marry him, seducing her didn't work. So he decided to attract her differently, to trick her, to stain her reputation, so that he would be the only man who would marry her. So by taking her to London, he kept her in a house which was governed or ruled by a prostitute, and it was inhabited by different prostitutes. In the beginning, she didn't know that. She thought that this woman was his relative, but it was through time that she understood that she was in the wrong place. And although she tried to escape him many times, they found her at each time, and they took her back home at each time. Mr. Lovelace was also changing her letters and changing the letters she received from her family. So whenever she received any letter from her parents and her brothers, he exchanged them, he wrote them differently. And so this is what he did to her letters, which she was sending to her family, until her parents, her father, decided that she was no longer part of the family, and he didn't want her back. So she lost the support of her family. By changing the letters of her family, he changed one of the letters that she was exchanging with her uncle, and in which he wrote that her uncle wanted her to marry Mr. Lovelace, while her uncle never said that she should be doing such thing. Mr. Lovelace changed the letter, and under the name or under the signature of her uncle, he made her believe that her uncle wanted her to marry Mr. Lovelace. So she accepted to marry the man based on what she thought her uncle asked her to do. At the end, or without getting into too many details, because this is not what I'm supposed to be doing here, at the end of the novel, she is raped by Mr. Lovelace. Actually, he plotted to rape her twice. In the first time, she was saved from him, but the second time, she was raped. He managed to rape her. So she was feeling regret. She was feeling delusions. She was hopeless. She escaped him again, and she was caught by the police when the owner of the house went to the police and told them that she was renting a room in her house and never paid her. So she was caught by the police and she was put in jail. Once in jail, she refused to eat, and she caused her own death. That is, she decided that she was going to die, that it was better for her to die. So she stopped eating, and she lived in total anxiety until she died. Okay, so one of the main, although there are many themes in this novel, one of the main themes or messages of the novel is that if a woman would try to choose the man she wants to marry, she will have a very bad ending. And that a woman who doesn't choose her husband, or a woman who doesn't choose emotion and sensibility over rationality, will have a good ending. Because in the novel, in the letters she was exchanging with her friend decides to marry the man that was chosen for her by her mother. and thus her friend has a good ending. She is Anna. Her friend is named Anna. Okay, so Anna marries the man that was chosen by her mother, and as a consequence, she is rich. She gets a very good living, a very happy life, and so on. So the idea here is that if you will marry a man that was chosen by your parents, by your mother, father, or else, you are going to have a good ending, a happy ending. But if you choose sensibility and emotion, you will definitely have a bad ending, and probably you will be raped and then die, just like what happened to Clarissa. Okay, so is the overview of the story clear to you? Can we proceed with the analysis?
Yes, miss, of course.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the basic themes, as I said, are related, or the themes that are related to the 18th century novel and rationalism are merely the reflection of the middle class of the 18th century. So in this novel, we can see all the details of the lifestyle of the middle class, of life in London, and you can see the realism, or rather the imitation of the real life in every aspect, in every detail. Also, the reflection of the individual of the middle class, their psychology and the emotions. Sorry, and the inner thoughts of the protagonist of the middle class, and then the rationalism of the 18th century, which we will see throughout the entire novel. Okay, so without delaying this, let's now start talking about the excerpt. I hope that you read the excerpt. I'm going to read it very quickly, and I will need you to be active here with me. Can you identify the excerpt? Can you identify the passage? Hello, everyone, or anyone. Sorry.
Yes, miss.
Yes, Ahmed.
Yeah. This passage taken from the epistolar,
Epistolary.
re- yeah, epistolary uh, realistic novel,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which written by Samuel Richardson
Mm-hmm.
in the 18th century. Can I mention century or not?
Yes, you can mention the century.
Yeah. Uh, this is I'll miss this what I have now.
All
Anyway,
right. You are also required to mention the title of the pass the chapter, since we have the title of the chapter here in front of you, and we also have the page numbers. Okay.
uh,
So
uh,
a suitable identification of the passage would be: this excerpt is taken from the epistolary, like you said, epistolary realist novel Clarissa, or History of a Young Lady, written by Samuel Richardson. And then chapter, let's check the chapter. It's rather a letter than a chapter. Letter
uh,
21,
sure.
okay? Letter
Yeah.
21 instead of chapter. So letter 21, entitled,
Miss
now we're not
Clarissa.
going, yes,
Uh,
Miss Clarissa to Miss Ho. Okay, I'm not going to put everything because you see here Thursday evening, June. This is the date on which the letter was written. So I'm not going to put everything. I'm only going to put this from Miss Clarissa Harlow to Miss Ho. Okay,
okay.
so letter 21 from Miss Clarissa Harlow to Miss Ho. Of the page number, pages 937 and 938. Okay.
Miss, the pages are not mentioned in the excerpt.
There are.
Oh,
Do you hear?
yes, yes, yes,
This
yes.
is the page number.
Just
Okay.
now I see it, yes.
Yes. All right. Actually, it's a book, or it's a novel that exceeds 1,000 lines, 1,000 pages. Sorry, and it's composed of different volumes. I think this was taken from the second volume, if I'm not wrong.
Mrs.
Yes.
We can also mention the year it was written in. I believe it was written in 1748.
Yes. Very good. Yes. We can also mention the year, written by Samuel Richardson in 1748. Okay, I didn't check the date of publication. I think it's 1748. Well, I'm trusting you here. I'm following your own, or I'm following you here. Okay, now let's go back to the excerpt. So let's have a look at the first two lines. After my last, so full of hopes, the content of this will surprise you. Now I want you to focus here. When she says, after my last, so full of hopes, what she means is my last letter. Okay? The last here, the word last refers to her last letter. That is, after my last letter, so full of hopes, the content of this will surprise you. That is the content of this letter. And that's because in the last letter she had sent to her friend Anna Ho was a letter that was full of hopes. She thought it was a letter in which she thought that Mr. Lovelace was a good man. Okay? So after my last letter so full of hopes, the content of this will surprise you. This is actually a figure of speech. Can you tell me which figure of speech this is? Hello? Which figure of speech is this? After my last so full of hopes, my last letter so full of hopes, the content of this will surprise you.
It's a metaphor.
No, it's not a metaphor.
Personification, Miss.
Why personification?
Exaggeration.
Because hopes.
Paradox.
One by one, please.
It's a paradox.
Let's listen to the person who said personification. Why do you think it's personification?
Because letters are not are objects that have inhuman feature or quality. However, hopes it is related to man.
You make a point here, but when she says the letter which is full of hopes, that is the content of the letter was full of hopes. It's not the letter which is hoping. You can consider this as a personification if the letter was doing the act of hoping, but in this case, no, it is the content of the letter which was full of hope. Someone said something after personification? Someone else was trying to...
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
I said the paradox.
Paradox, Malika.
Yes.
You are very clear, you are very close to the right answer. It's not a paradox, it's an analogy. Okay? The difference between analogy, difference between analogy and paradox is that in the paradox you have two words that oppose each other, but in the analogy, two
Yes,
situations.
two phrases.
Yes, which is the case here. In the first situation, it was a letter which was full of hopes. The second situation is a letter that that will surprise her. That is, it's going to be full of bad news. Okay, so let's take this. There is an analogy in the first line of the letter. My last, so full of hopes. In which, remember, you should always explain your figures of speech, okay? Always provide an explanation to the figure of speech, in which Clarissa is trying to inform her friend Anna that she will be transmitting bad news. Okay. Even though it's not time to speak of the figures of speech, but I decided to put it here so that we can find it later. So I left a space. We will get back to it later. We're going to put the other ideas here. So back to the text. Oh, my dearest friend, the man has at last proved himself to be a villain, which shows that in the previous letter, she thought that he was a good man, but now she discovered that he is a villain. He's a bad person. So, it was with the utmost difficulty last night that I preserved myself from the vilest dishonor. He extorted from me a promise of forgiveness, and that I would see him the next day as if nothing happened. But if it were possible to escape from a wretch who, as I have too much reason to believe, formed a plot to fire a house to frighten me almost naked into his arms, how could I see him the next day? Now, she is speaking about what happened after the incident. Okay, she says it was with the utmost difficulty last night that I preserved myself from the vilest dishonor, and that's because Mr. Lovelace attempted to rape her after he made her believe that there was a fire in the house. So the vilest dishonor here. This here is a reference to rape. Okay. He extorted from me a promise of forgiveness and that I would see him the next day as if nothing had happened. So this is after the incident. He asked her for forgiveness and he made her promise him that she would see him, or rather that she would still be the same person, that she's going to act like nothing happened. Okay. But if it were possible to escape from a wretch who, as I have too much reason to believe, formed a plot to fire the house to frighten me almost naked into his arms, how could I see him the next day? That is, she's saying here that he formed a plot, that is, he attempted to make her believe that there was a fire in the house, to form plots, just like the fictional plot. That is, he just made a form of a play, or he just tricked her into believing that there was a fire in the house. And she ends up the paragraph stating that she would want to escape the house and that she would not be able to see him the next day as if nothing happened. I have escaped, heaven be praised I have, and now have no other concern that I fly from the only hope that could have made such a husband tolerable to me, the reconciliation with my friends so agreeably undertaken by my uncle. Now, this is after Mr. Lovelace made her think that her uncle wanted her to marry him. Okay, she was planning to marry him. She had accepted to marry him, and she was planning to marry him when he decided to rape her. So she escaped him, and she is revealing her inner thoughts. You know, as she's speaking here, she's revealing her inner thoughts and her emotions about him. She's sharing her thoughts about him. So she says, now I have no other concern that I fly from the only hope that could have made such a husband tolerable to me. That is, she's trying to avoid thinking about the idea that she was about to marry this man, and she thought that this man was a good man for her. All my present hope is to find some reputable family or person of my own sex, that is, a woman, who is obliged to go beyond sea, or who lives abroad, I care not whether, but if I might choose in some one of our American colonies, never to be heard of more by my relations whom I have so grievously offended. Now she feels like she has offended her family. She feels guilty, and she feels like she has offended her family, and this is why she wants to escape. She wants to go overseas, to the American colonies maybe. So her only hope now is to find someone that will take her abroad, someone that will help her to go abroad. I hope that you are taking note of the general ideas as I am explaining these paragraphs one by one. Please take note so that we can fill them later. Are you?
Yes,
Yes,
Miss.
yes.
Well, hopefully you are. Okay. Now, next paragraph. Nor let your generous heart be moved at what I write. If I can escape the dreadfulest part of my father's malediction, for the temporary part is already in a manner fulfilled, which makes me tremble in apprehension of the other, I shall think of the wreck of my worldly fortunes as a happy composition. You see that he has somehow a complicated style. He has complex sentences. So what she's saying here is that she doesn't want her friend to be emotional towards her or to take her side. She wants her friend to be rather neutral. So she tells her, nor let your generous heart be moved at what I write. That is, don't be affected by what I am writing. Try to be more neutral while reading me. If I can escape the dreadfulest part of my father's malediction, for the temporary part is already in a manner fulfilled, which makes me tremble in apprehension of the other. I shall think of the wreck of my worldly fortunes as a happy composition. In a way, she's saying that if she can make her father, or if she can get her father's um, pardon and her father's forgiveness, she would think of herself as the happiest person or or as the luckiest person ever. And she's speaking of two parts you see here. The part of her father being angry with her, and the other part is the part in which she was in a bad situation with Mr. Lovelace, and she escaped him. Okay, so in this paragraph, she is simply saying that she is wishing for her father's forgiveness, and that she would be a very happy person if her father would accept to forgive her. Next paragraph. Neither is there the need for a renewal of your so often tendered goodness to me, for I have with me rings and other valuables that were sent me with my clothes, which will turn into money as to answer all I can want, till Providence shall be pleased to put me into some want to help. If for my for my further punishment, my life is to be lengthened beyond my wishes. Now there are so many things that she said in these 4 lines. First, she's saying that there is no need for her friend to send her any money or any form of help. Okay, she's saying neither is there any need for the renewal of your so often tendered goodness to me. This is again a reference to the money or to different forms of help that Anna was sending her. This tells us that Anna was actually sending money to Clarissa to help her. So she says, I have with me rings and other valuables that were sent me with my clothes, which will turn into money. That is, she is telling her that she will be selling her rings and the valuables in order to have enough money to help herself with. To answer all I can want, till Providence shall be pleased to put me in some want to help myself. Do you know what is meant by Providence? Hello? Are you there?
Yes, Miss. Providence,
Yes.
the Almighty help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's God. All right. When she says, till Providence shall be pleased to put me in someone to help myself, that is, until God will decide to change my fate. If for my further punishment my life is to be lengthened beyond my wishes, that is, we already know that she wants to put an end to her life, and she thinks that if she is going to live any longer, this is going to be a punishment for her. She wasn't raped here. This is in this letter. she wasn't raped, she had escaped rape. This was the first time Mr. Lovelace had attempted to rape her, and she escaped it. So she escaped the rape, and she wants her life to be to come to an end. She wants to die. And this is why she caused her own death after the real rape. Next paragraph. Impute not this scheme, my beloved friend, either to dejection on one hand, or to that romantic turn on the other, which we have supposed generally to obtain with our sex from 15 to 22. For be pleased to consider my unhappy situation in the light in which it really must appear to every considerate person who knows, in the first place, the man who has endeavored to make me his property will hunt me as a stray, and he knows he may do so with impunity. For whom I have from whom have I to protect me from him? For whom, sorry, have I to protect me from him? So, sorry. She's now making clear, or she's speaking about her inability to choose. On the one side, she has to choose. She's somehow wondering whether she has to choose to be romantic, to choose emotion, or to choose rationality. She says, "For we are generally, or rather, that women from the age of 15 to the age of 22 are constantly put in this situation in which they have to choose between emotion and rationality, in the light in which it really must be appear to every considerate person who knows it. In the first place, the man who has endeavored to make me his property will hunt me as a stray." Now she is complaining about Mr. Lovelace, that not only he was endeavoring, he was struggling to make her his property, to get her, will hunt me as a stray. That is, wherever she would go, he will still be after her. He will still be trying to hunt her. What do you think of this sentence? Hunt me as a stray.
It's a figure of speech.
Yeah, I know that. Which figure of speech is it?
Simile.
Very good. Yes, it's a simile in which she is saying that Mr. Lovelace will always be after her. He will be always trying to hunt her, to get her, and as if he was an animal trying to get his stray. Okay. And he knows he may do so with impunity. That is, he knows that nobody is going to punish him if he hunts her. For whom have I to protect myself from him? Now she is asking, she is raising a question, but she is not truly expecting an answer. This is an interrogation, okay? The who is going to protect me from him? In a way, she is saying that nobody is going to protect her, that she is now without any protection, and that this man is everywhere she is going, and she has no protection from him. Okay. Now I'm going to take these two figures of speech so that we wouldn't have to go back to them later. So there is a simile in hunt me as a stray. Which means, sorry, that Mr. Lovelace will not, or rather, will be after her until he chooses her. Okay. There is also another figure of speech. Which one is it? Yes, the final question, the interrogation. Sorry. There is an interrogation in for whom my, what is this sentence? For whom have I to protect me from him? From whom have I to protect me from him? Which is a way of saying that she had nobody to protect her from Mr. Lovelace. Okay. Back to the text. Then as to my estate. Now the estate is the wealth, the fortune, okay, her wealth. The envied estate. She refers to her wealth as the envied estate because everyone envied her for her estate. Everyone was jealous of her for her wealth. Her father, her brother, her sister, her uncle, everyone wanted to have this wealth, which has been, as well as Mr. Lovelace, okay, which has been the original cause of all my misfortunes. That is, she's speaking of her wealth, which was the cause of her misfortunes, of all her problems. It shall never be mine upon litigated terms. And this is because her grandfather told her that she will only have his wealth if she marries within 1 year. So since she decided that she is not going to marry anyone, she is saying here that this wealth will never be hers, or she is never going to have this wealth legitimately, okay, under upon litigated terms. What is there in being enabled to boast that I am worth more than I can use or wish to use? And if my power is circumscribed, I shall not have that to answer for, which I should have if I did not use it as I ought, which very few do. I shall have no husband of whose interest I ought to be so regardful, as to prevent me doing more than justice to others, that I may not do less for him. If therefore my father will be pleased, as I shall presume in proper time to propose to him, to pay 2 annuities out of it, one to my dear Mrs. Norton, which may make her easy for the remainder of her life, as she is now growing into years, and the other £50 per annum, that is per year, to the same good woman for the use of my poor, as I had the vanity to call a certain set of people concerning whom she knows all my mind, that so as few as possible may suffer by the consequences of my error. God bless them, and give them the heart's ease and content with the rest. All the reasons for my taking the step I have hinted at are these. Now, in short, what she is saying in this paragraph is that she wanted her wealth to be divided and to be given to merely to Mrs. What's her name? What's her name? Yes, Mrs. Norton. Okay. So in a way, she's saying that she wanted her wealth to go to be given to different people, to the poor merely, and to Mrs. Norton because she was very poor, and that she wanted them to give her £50 a year, because she was the one who had been through the greatest trouble because of what happened to Clarissa, and moreover that Clarissa was never going to use that money because she had decided she was not going to marry anyone. Okay. So in this paragraph, she is simply saying that she is not keeping her wealth, and that her wealth is going to be, or that she wishes that her wealth is given to other people. This wicked man knows I have no friend. Now, this wicked man, she is speaking about Mr. Lovelace. This wicked man knows I have no friend in the world but you. Your neighborhood, therefore, would be the first he would seek for me in, were you to think it possible for me to be concealed in it. And in this case, you might be subjected to inconveniences greater even than those which you have already sustained on my account. Did you understand this paragraph? Come on, I want you to interact. Can you explain it? This one is very easy to explain. It makes me sleepy to speak alone. Yes?
Here, she explains that Lovelace knows that she has no friend to go to except for Anna, and that if she escaped, her neighborhood would be the first he would look for her into.
Yes. In short, she's saying that she's not going to hide in Anna's neighborhood because Mr. Lovelace is going to search for her there first. So she doesn't want to cause any trouble to Anna. She says, I don't want you, where is it? In this case, you might be subjected to inconveniences greater even than those which you have already sustained on my account. That is, you already had enough problems because of me before, and she didn't want her to be put in more inconveniences because of her. Okay. From my cousin Morden, were he to come, I could not hope protection, since by his letter to me it is evident that my brother has engaged him in his party. So she's speaking about her cousin, whom she would have wanted to hide, or in whose house she would have wanted to hide, but her cousin also seems to have joined her brother's party that is side. Okay, that is, she knows that even her cousin is against her, and that her cousin will not be protecting her. No, nor would I. Now back to the text. Nor would I by any means subject so worthy a man to danger as might be the case from the violence of this ungovernable spirit. That is, even if her cousin wasn't against her, she wouldn't hide in his house because he is a very respectful man, and she doesn't want to put him in danger because she thinks that Mr. Lovelace is a dangerous man. These things considered, what better method can I take than to go abroad to some one of the English colonies where nobody but yourself shall know anything of me? So she was explaining the arguments for which she decided to go overseas and not stay in England. So she said first that Mr. Lovelace will hunt her everywhere, that she cannot hide in that she cannot hide in Anna's neighborhood because he will find her there, that she cannot hide in her cousin's house because the cousin has already joined her brother's side. So the best solution she can think of is escaping to the to the English colonies, that is to America. All right, where nobody but yourself shall know anything of me, nor you, let me tell you presently, nor till I am fixed, and if it please God, in a course of living tolerably to my mind. For it is no small part of my concern that my indiscretions have laid so heavy a tax upon you, my dear friend, to whom once I hope to give more pleasure than pain. This is here she's expressing her regret for making her friend receive so many bad news about her, for making her friend feel concerned about her evils, although she wanted to make her to cause her pleasure rather than pain. Okay. I am at present at one Mrs. Moore's at Hampstead. What she means by I am at present is I am now. Okay, that is the moment in which she is writing the letter. She is in Mrs. Moore's house at Hampstead. So I am at present at one Mrs. Moore's house, Moore's at Hampstead. My heart misgave me at the comment to this village, because I had been here with him more than once. But the coach hither with was so ready a conveniency that I knew not what to do better. Then I shall stay here no longer than till I can receive your answer to this, in which you will be pleased to let me know, if I cannot be hid according to your former contrivance. Happy I had given it into it at the time by Mrs. Towson's assistance, till the heat of his search be over. The Deptford road, I imagine, will be the right direction to hear of a passage and get safely abroad. Sorry. So she's here speaking about the details or the things she's thinking about that she's hiding in Mrs. Moore's, because this is the only place she could think about, even though she was there before with Mrs. Lovelace, with Mr. Lovelace, and that she has bad memories about that place, and that she will be staying in Mrs. Moore's until she will receive a letter from Anna, in which Anna will be telling her whether she is okay about her plans, and that if Mr. Lovelace doesn't find her before she gets Anna's letter, she will be searching for a passage to go abroad. That is, she will be going to Deptford in order to find a way to go to America, okay, and get safely abroad. What she means here is going to America. Next. Oh, why was a great fiend all enchained and permitted to assume so specious a form, and yet allowed to conceal his feet and his tongues, till with the one he was ready to trample upon my honor, and to strike the other into my heart? And what had I done that he should be let loose particularly upon me? Now she's, in a way, she is crying her fate here, because she's wondering why would such a bad person be free, and why would such a bad person be around her? Why would such a bad person be constantly around her? And she's wondering if she had done anything bad to be punished that way. Next paragraph. Forgive me this murmuring question. The effect of my impatience, my guilty impatience, I doubt. For as I have escaped with my honor, and nothing but my worldly prospects, and my pride, my ambition, my vanity, have suffered in this wretch of my hopefuller fortunes. May I not still be more happy than I deserve to be? And is it not in my own power, still by the divine favor, to secure the greatest stake of all? And who knows but that this very path into which my inconsideration has thrown me, strewed as it is with briars and thorns? Now, all these are metaphors here, just to, they are metaphors that reflect to her troubles and her difficulties and her hardships, all the hardships she is going through in this bad experience, which tear in pieces my gaudier trappings, may not be the right path to lead me into the great road to my future happiness, which might have been endangered by evil communication. Again, she's raising questions, but she's not expecting any answer here. Sorry. She's raising questions, but she's not truly expecting answers as much as she is complaining about her bad fate and about the bad things that are happening to her. She says, forgive me this murmuring question. That is, she is just saying the things that she's thinking about, which means that in this letter, she's making a confession. She's not just telling her friend about the things that happened to her. She's also confessing. She She's telling her even about the things that are in her mind, about her inner thoughts, her inner feelings, and so on. Remember when I said the author uses the epistolary novel, or uses the letters as a technique to reflect the inner feelings and inner thoughts of the character. And this is what we have here. This is what this paragraph is about. Next paragraph. And after all, are there not still more deserving persons than I, who never failed in any capital point of duty, than have been more humbled than myself, and some too by the errors of parents and relations, by the tricks and baseness of guardians and trustees, and in which their own rashness or folly had no part? I will then endeavor to make the best of my present lot, and join with me my best, my only friend, in praying that my punishment may end here, and that my present afflictions may be sanctified to me. In short, she is still reflecting her ideas or expressing her inner feelings. She's speaking about her punishment and all this. She's simply saying that she's being punished, okay? She's simply saying that she's punished and that she has to endure all this because this is her punishment and she has to go through it. She has to be patient. Any questions regarding the paragraphs?
Miss,
Yes?
I have a question, but it is not about the meaning. It is about the language.
Okay.
In the first page, line number 5,
Yes.
and the second page, line number 8, the author used were with its and with he. I want to know what is the reason behind the use of were with its.
Okay. It said page 1, line number 5.
5, yes. But if it were possible to escape. And in the second page, from my cousin mother, where he too came.
Yes. Now, if it were possible, this is the unconditional. Okay? Because it begins with if. This is the unconditional. In the unconditional, you can say if it were instead of if it was. Or he were. You can also say if he were instead of if he was. Okay? Because this is the unconditional.
Okay. I will.
And cousin Martin, from my cousin Martin, were he to come, Yes. This is a formal way of speaking, okay? Remember that this was written in the 18th century, and the formal sentences were kind of different. So this is a very formal language. What is meant here is that he would come.
But
Okay?
it is still used today, nowadays.
Yes, if someone wants to sound classy, aristocratic, and so on, they would be using this style. It's just a very formal way of expression. Okay? It's just someone who wants to sound prestigious and, someone classy. All right?
All right, yes.
But the meaning is he would come, or were he to come. Yeah, he would come if he had come, or if he had, if he had come. Okay?
Thank you, yes.
You're welcome. All right. Now let's have a. Can you give me what you have taken from the paragraphs? Now I spent 1 hour explaining the paragraphs. So can you give me the overview of the text, the general ideas? What shall we put in the general ideas of the text? What is the text about?
Miss, the first paragraph.
No, in general.
Everything.
Anything that you have.
In her letter, Clarissa started describing how hard was that night when the villain man tried to rape her, after plotting to fire the house, then he extorted a promise of forgiveness from her. But now she could no more meet him again without doubting his truthfulness.
All right, good. Let's write this down. Okay, so in this letter,
In her letter.
well, I am here paraphrasing your words because
Okay.
we cannot start by saying in her letter. It's a poetic language, but in an essay, it is more preferable to use straight and direct language rather than poetic language. So in this letter, Clarissa is speaking about Mr. Lovelace's attempt to rape her and rape her by plotting
To fire the house.
by the house. Okay. What was the rest of your sentence?
Then extorted a promise of forgiveness.
Yeah. So in this letter, Clarissa is speaking about Mr. Lovelace's attempt to rape her by plotting the fire, to fire the house, who then extorted
a
a promise from her that she would,
No.
sorry, from her that she would forgive him.
No.
Sorry?
Carry on, Miss.
Okay. That she would forgive him and not think about it the next day. Clarissa could not live with such a supposition and escaped him the next morning. Yes?
Miss, I think she forgave him the first time.
Well, when she says he extorted the promise, that is, he made her promise that she would forgive him. So she certainly told him, yes, I forgive you, but she couldn't truly forgive him. Okay, that is, maybe she said it, but she didn't truly think it, or she didn't truly believe it. She just said it because he put pressure over her, or that he didn't want to let her go. He wanted her to forgive him by any means. Okay, you know, as we say in Arabic, سمت عليها. All right. So he wouldn't let her alone. So he wouldn't leave her in peace, and this is why she said it, just so that he would leave her in peace. But she didn't truly forgive him. Okay. Now
Yes.
next, let's see the others. What else do you have about the general ideas? How about the others? I've been speaking for a long time. Did you retain anything? Hello.
Is it?
Yes, Ahma.
In the next idea, after realizing that Lovelace was an evil man, Clarissa had escaped, and she starts to wonder how could she ever consider marrying this evil man. And then she proceeds. To think of escaping to another country with someone preferably of her own sex, and she would live abroad away from any member of her family.
All right, thank you. Let's put this. Okay. Clarissa. Oops, what did I do? So you're saying Clarissa thought it was preferable that she leaves the country. Now we will have to do this very shortly because we're almost out of time and we still have a lot of things to speak about. So I'm going to summarize this to put this in very short lines. But if you are doing this for your homework or for your exam, in the general ideas, you still have to put more details. Like your answers now, your answers were good, okay? But as I am going to speak about this, I'm going to shorten, I'm going to be very fast, just so that we would move to something else. So Clarissa thought it was preferable that she leaves the country because her decision to marry Lovelace had to be a wrong thing to do since he revealed himself to be a bad man and she had nobody to go to around her since her family, brother and cousins were all turned against her. She decided to give away her fortune and find a ship to travel to the English colonies, probably America. Okay, now I'm going to stop the recording now and start the recording again because apparently students cannot watch long videos because of the bad internet. So in the next video, I will be speaking about the characterization, plot, themes, and the point of view and literary devices.